Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Life Matters TV. I'm Tommy Stoffel, and my friend David McLeod is with us again today. Today, we're talking about a topic called conscious self-creation. Sounds like a mouthful and a mindful, and I'm going to turn it over to David to talk a little bit about what conscious self-creation is, and then we'll get into a discussion on how we can use it and employ it in our lives. To you, David.
Well, thank you, Tommy, and good morning, everybody. Yeah, conscious self-creation is one of those concepts that came to me over a period of years. There's been a lot of talk about, last week we had Bob Doyle on the show, and we were talking about the law of attraction and the notion of manifestation and creation. But what a lot of people don't think about is how, in the process of manifesting what we want in our lives, there's a way in which we're actually recreating ourselves as well, in a physical sense, in a spiritual sense, in a psychological sense. And so what I wanted to talk about today, a topic that I think is really important and something that I think everybody should really be taking in, is that most of the time, as we wander through our lives and go through this journey and this adventure that we call life, we are creating ever-increasing versions of ourselves, but mostly we're unaware of it. We're going through our lives and we're not really thinking consciously about how we want to show up in the next version of ourselves. So what I like to do is I like to bring people's awareness to that. And I know, Tommy, you do the same thing in your coaching, although you may not call it that. You have probably a different name for it. But I know that you do that work with people. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely do, David. And something, you said that we don't consciously think about it. And here's something I bring, it's one of these obvious things that I bring to everyone's attention whenever I can. What we think about, what goes on in our head, leads to our actions. So what we think about leads to what we do. And what we do, our actions, lead to our results or our outcomes. And it's just very commonsensical, right? What we think about, we do. What we do leads to our outcomes. Yet most of us, like you said, David, maybe people life's just happening to you, is what you said to me previously. And too many of us are just letting life happen to us. And then we wake up and we wonder why things aren't going well, or why things have gone sideways, or why we're off our path.
Yeah.
So it's that we're bringing awareness and that consciousness up front to what we're thinking and how we're thinking. And David, I know you practice this as well and teach this to your folks as well.
Yep, that's absolutely right. I think that you mentioned the notion of thought precedes action, and I think that's absolutely true. In fact, one of the things that I kind of teach people, I say, okay, just sit down wherever you are and just notice something that's in your environment. It could be it could be the building you're in. It could be the room you're in. It could be the chair you're sitting on. It could be the trees outside. It could be anything. All you got to do is just focus your attention on that item for a moment and ask yourself, where did this thing come from? And most things, if you think about it for a moment and just take it back in time, just take it back, eventually you have to say, well, somebody thought of that thing. Somebody had a thought that led them to create it, or to maybe get some other people involved, or to begin a movement, or whatever it is they did, and ultimately, over a period of time, the thing that you're looking at came into being. So you're talking about the idea of thought preceding action. I think that's a very powerful teaching, and something that we just don't think about, because most of our thoughts, about 90% or so, are completely unconscious.
Yeah, very true. Until they're not anymore, right?
That's right.
There's people talk about being the watcher or being the observer, and that's being the watcher or the observer of your own mind. Mm-hmm. We have a capacity in ourselves to watch what we think about and to watch our minds, and sometimes until you've practiced that a bit, it's hard to even think about, because it'd be like herding cats, or one of those other metaphors of it's too much stuff going on in there, and how the heck do I keep track of it all? But somebody taught me a wonderful technique once, and it's sometimes imagine yourself stepping out of your own life, and imagine your life is on a stage now, and you go and sit, and the audience is empty, but you're in a theater, and you go and sit in the audience in one of the seats, and you watch. And you watch what you're doing. You watch how you're behaving. You watch how you're thinking. Mm-hmm. And like you said, David, it doesn't take, eventually you want to get vigilant enough to be watching your mind all the time, but just to practice it once a day or a couple times a week, just to kind of get the feel of it. And your idea there of sitting and just contemplating something that you see is doing that, because you're bringing awareness and consciousness to what you're doing, what you're thinking, and that's just warming up the mind to be more aware of what's going on in there.
That's really good, and I agree totally with what you're saying. And for me, the whole notion of conscious self-creation actually consists. I mean, I'm kind of like Bob. I don't like the 4-step thing or whatever, because we tend to oversimplify. But I see 4 phases in the conscious self-creation process, and it goes in a kind of a cycle. So the first phase is self-reflection, where I look at who I am right now, how I am right now, where I am, what I am, and so forth. Once I've done that for a while, the next thing I can do is I can define a new version of myself. It's kind of like creating an outline or a template for the product that I want to create next. And I just define, there's some characteristics of myself now that I really like, and there's some characteristics I'm not so crazy about, and there's some things I want to add, and there's some things I want to remove. So basically, I'm looking at how I want to redefine myself. Once I've done that phase, then the next phase after that is to actually go through a formal declaration process, and that is to declare who I am. I take my template, or my whatever I'm calling it, an outline, and I actually transform that into present tense statements, so that I can declare to the universe, this is who I am choosing to be now. And then once I've done that process, now each of these, as you can tell, it is going to take a little bit of time. They're not just instantaneous little episodes. Each one could be a full-blown workshop unto itself, actually. But then finally, after I've gone through those first 3 phases, then I go into the self-expression, so that I can really experience myself in the way that I'm choosing to be. And then once I've done that, I can begin the cycle again, or if I choose, I can stop, or I can wait, or I can do something else. But that's essentially how the process works.
Yeah, and that's it's clear and it's simple. 4 steps only. But let's go back. Let's go back and let's go through those one at a time and talk a little bit about each one, and maybe give some hints or some clues on ways to do that. So go ahead and say the first one again. It's
self-reflection.
Self-reflection. So let's talk about different ways of doing that. Again, I think you started off by saying sometimes you just sit where you are and try to become present in the situation and look at something, observe something, and in doing that you're kind of start to watch your mind. And so self-reflection.
One of the things that I like to do when I'm in that space is I like to just sit quietly, and I guess this would be a meditation, and I just simply ask myself the question, who am I? And then I just wait for whatever answer shows up. And what I've noticed for myself is that I'll go through fairly simplistic answers. Very often the first answer that comes up is, oh yeah, I'm David, And then I realize, well, wait a minute, I'm not just my name, so who am I? And then I start, going through some of the other characteristics of myself, like, oh, I'm a man, I'm a father, I'm a brother, and I see myself now as a being who holds different roles. But I'm not, although I perform the role of father, that doesn't define who I am. And similarly, when I perform the role of brother, that doesn't define who I am. And so what I notice about that is, wow, I am a lot deeper than I thought I was. It's really cool.
Yeah, it is an amazing process, and if you take it far enough, you'll kind of realize that I've done this too in a different way, and some of those definitions I had of myself, of who I am, and what my name is, and what my age is, and what defines me. You see what I'm doing with my hands here? It kind of boxed myself in. I kind of put myself in a box,
Mm-hmm.
And I had a teacher once that we were talking this process through, and all of a sudden I just had this kind of aha moment that I realized that I am not this box. I am not what is in this box. I play roles, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I participate in life in certain ways that have boundaries, but I am so much bigger. I'm infinite.
Absolutely.
Energetically, I'm part of the whole big everything.
Yep.
And when you can kind of let your head not wrap around that, but unwrap and let it free,
Yeah.
you'll see how what you really are and how immense we really are. And this gets into what Bob was talking about last week, our creative power as well, because we're beings of energy, and we create with our thoughts and our actions and our results.
Yeah,
So
I think
to do it consciously, with self-awareness is the first step.
Sorry, dude, I'm talking over top of you there. Yeah, your point about being infinite. I know that my ego mind resists that statement. My ego mind is saying, no, you're not so infinite. That's just egotism blowing you out of proportion. But it really is the truth. The more I do this exercise, the more I ask myself who I am, the more I realize I can come up with more and more and more answers. And each one is just like an aspect of the bigger picture. So although my mind, my ego mind has difficulty accepting this notion of being infinite, my heart says, nope, no problem, I'm good with that. My spirit says, I'm good with that. That's exactly right. You are all that is. You are everything. You are all of it and none of it all at the same time. It's just a freaking amazing exercise.
Man, you hit it right there on the nose, because when you do this self-reflection, and you do it enough, you'll come to this place where you'll realize that you're everything and you're nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All at the same time, and that can be a little mind-blowing, but that's part of the essence of it.
Right.
So first step, self-reflection, and then what do you say for second step? What do you do?
Okay, so once I have a pretty good sense of who I am right now, how I'm showing up, and by the way, when I say that, I mean, okay, so I have roles, and I am a father of a certain type right now. Now, the thing that I want to do in my definition part is to define the kind of father that I am choosing to be in the next moment. What aspects of fatherism would I like to improve? What aspects would I like to maybe turn down a little? What new processes would I like to bring in? And then the same thing might apply to being a poet. What can I do to improve for the next version of poetism that I happen to create for myself? And all of these, by the way, are just mechanisms for allowing the all that is and the nothingness to start flowing through me through my physical body and to manifest in the physical reality. That's really what it's all about. So it's now a case of defining the next version of who I'm choosing to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and it makes no sense at all. since we're playing that game today. Yeah, so I talk about this in the term of when I teach people, I talk about getting stuck in the past or getting all worried or anxious about the future.
Right.
But the future is there, and there's something we can do with it, and we can plan for it. And the way I encourage people to plan for the future is along the same lines of what you're doing there, of saying, what inspires me, what change am I looking to affect in my life, and again, it's not the new car, or the new house. That's not the stuff you ask for in this world, and it's not the way that works.
That's right.
You ask for things that will advance you as a dad, or as a human being, or as a teacher, or as whoever you are, whatever role you're playing, and you ask for how to be better, a little bit better, or a lot better, and then you create that vision of yourself, and it helps to write these things down sometimes. Absolutely. Which is your step 3 we'll get to in a second. And then you have what I call this balloon of inspiration. That's your inspiration out there in the future, mm-hmm. that you're always kind of working for, or get up in the morning to shift towards. So really powerful process.
Yeah, and I love the way you use the word inspiration, because for me, inspire means to bring spirit in, to bring spirit in and then kind of flow it out again. It's like a cycling process. And I think, well, I mean, the root for inspire is indeed spirit anyway. And so that's what we're doing, and that's what breathing is all about, is bringing spirit into the body and allowing it to express in some ways. So what we're talking about here is creating a kind of a definition so that the ego mind can wrap itself around that and understand what it is you're trying to do. It's not about limiting the soul in any way. It's just about giving the ego mind something to work with. Because if you get the ego mind working as a partner with the spirit, it can be a very wonderful partnership. But if you let the ego mind run the show, disaster ensues, as I'm sure you've already experienced. So, but there's something else you said, and I wanted to just draw attention to it. It's true, I think, that we don't really want the new car or the new house or any of that. What we really want is the experience that we'll get by having that thing. And it's not always clear that we are moving ourselves in a particular direction in order to have some kind of experience. Perhaps it's an experience of connection with other people. Perhaps it's an experience of expressing love. Perhaps it's an experience of receiving love. It doesn't really matter. Somehow we believe through our ego mind that if we go for that thing and we get it, then we will have that experience. And I think if we can go underneath and say, what is the experience I'm trying to create for myself, then we'll begin to say, oh, well, if that's the experience I want, then I don't necessarily need the new car or the new house. I could probably find other ways of creating that experience for my life.
Yeah, I love that word experience. Yeah, that experience itself is what we're talking about here. We said our thoughts lead to our actions, lead to our results. It's our thoughts and our feelings, actually. It's our mental makeup that leads, and the results are right. We do want an experience, and maybe we want an experience of less. It's not always more either. Sometimes we want an experience of less, noise in our head and more peace. Maybe we want an experience of, like you said, more genuine love and less of the needy, clingy, button pushing stuff. So yeah, the experience too. I think you're right on there, and that's that experiential aspect of life that you will get answers for. You ask for those types of things, and you'll get help and you'll get answers.
Right. Well, I think that everything that we think, say, do, or feel is motivated at its deepest level by a desire to give or receive love, and I think that's one characteristic or attribute that unites all of humanity. It's just that it doesn't always look that way. When we look outside and we see people creating violence and hurting each other and killing each other and stuff, we can't. It's hard for our ego mind to say, oh, that's a desire to give or receive love. It's hard to see it. But when we peel away all the layers and maybe even interview the person who's engaging in that kind of behavior, we'll eventually find that it's one of the two. Either he wants to give love or he wants to receive love because he hasn't been getting it for whatever reason. So I think that it's pretty rare to find the person who's in total balance and doesn't need either of those things. But there are some people like that, and I'm moving each time I go through this cycle. I get closer and closer and closer to that level.
Yeah, we're getting close to the deep end of the pool here because we're getting into the topic of what we talked about a few weeks ago, of this need for approval, this kind of need for love. Yeah. And some teachings, some great teachings will point out that need is kind of selfish. It's like, I need this, and that causes a lot of suffering. It sets up a lot of expectation. It sets up a lot of triggers for uncomfortable relationships. If you're expecting somebody to give you something and they don't, then we get into very conditional. We get into that conditional love. We get into judging, and so it's a bit of a slippery slope there of saying that we need. Again, being conscious and aware of what you're asking for and what it might lead to is really key in this process.
Right. So once you have a pretty good sense of this outline or this template of the next version of who you want to be, really the next phase is about declaring that. Saying, okay, this is how I'm going to be choosing to show up in my next version. Version 2 of David, this is how it looks. And the way I find that works best for me is by simply declaring it as a present tense statement with a lot of feeling and a lot of, well, I guess feeling is the right word. I want to bring the emotion into it. So I might declare myself as I am a loving, healing, and very giving father, for example. That might be one aspect of the new version of myself that I want to create. And so each person who has his or her own outline can start going through that process and declaring that and making it much clearer. Now, this is not meant to limit yourself in any way. It's just meant to say, okay, this is how I'm choosing to show up as I move forward in my next version.
Yeah, brilliant, and you hit upon some amazingly great points that I'm going to read back and actually say in a different way too, so it soaks in for folks. When we set out that that future inspiration of what we want to see or how we want to shift or how we want to change, part of that you got this inspiration there, but then you also have a plan, and you have goals, and you have steps, and you have things that you put into place to go there and to get there. Maybe you need to to go to some dad training, or you need to do something, right, to kind of help facilitate that goal. And the goal, the goal word in there is right on what you're talking about. And to write a goal, no matter what kind of goals you're writing, to write them in present tense, that this is the way it is, I'm enjoying it, and I'm feeling it, and having the emotion behind it, is an extremely powerful way of writing a goal, of describing what it is you're looking to grow into.
Well, I think that the present tense piece is critical, actually, because if I write it as a future tense thing and I go back and read it, it's always in the future. It's not here now.
Yeah, you're living in the valley of almost there.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, write it in the present tense. Really important point. Mm-hmm. And we keep saying these words, right. I think some people overlook the power of actually writing things down. Mm-hmm. These days, we got the computer. We type away and send an email, and we watch the TV, or we watching whatever we're doing, and there's huge power in taking ideas that are jumping around in our head and writing them down somewhere. And you can type them somewhere, but just to get them out onto a page or onto a screen is, I can't stress the importance of that enough in all this work that we do.
Right. Well, there's another piece in this too, and that is not only is it I think it needs to be written in the present tense, but more than that, I believe it must begin with the words I am. I am are the two most powerful words in the universe. They are it's like plugging the key into the engine of creation. If you don't have the key, it's nothing. It's not going to happen. But I am is a declaration. It's a present tense declaration of me. I'm here, and I am. This is true. Bingo. And now I'm actually commanding the universe to create it on my behalf. So I think that those two words are very, very important.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Mm-hmm. As long as you keep in there too, I am humble. I am, you gotta not let the ego mind, create another whole powerful nutcase out of that too.
Yeah.
So that goes without saying, but I said it there. So
thank you for saying what needed not to be. No, never mind. I just
sometimes you just have to say it though.
Yeah, that's right. So we get into the fourth phase, which is really about self-expression. And now this is where, I have now decided who I am choosing to be. My next step is to go out and express that aspect of myself and to share it with the world. It's not about, looking for approval or acknowledgement. It's just simply about showing up the way that is consistent with my definition of who I declared myself to be. That's what's really important. And it's like, I don't know, if you're trying to change a habit, you have to try something different. You have to replace the old behavior with something new. That's essentially what we're doing here. So it's a conscious exercise in expressing myself in the way that really matters to me.
Yeah, and that's beautifully said, and I'm not going to say too much more about that. Some of the underlying ideas of what you just said that people want to bring to the surface is sometimes we're asking, right? We're asking the universe for help. We're asking the universe to help, help us improve, or to help us get better, or to help us be a little bit different, or to help us to drop those old habits, or to drop old behaviors, or drop things that are no longer serving us.
Right.
So the Beatles sang a song, "Help," that I'm sure we're all familiar with, and I ask you right now in your mind, or at some point, go through the lyrics of that. It says about when I was younger I didn't need anybody's help, but now I do, and it's okay to ask.
Yeah, that's a really important point. I think that in our efforts to appear all self-contained and adequate to get that approval, we choose not to ask for help. Whereas, ironically, when we ask for help, we demonstrate our humanity and our willingness to trust somebody else. And that is a great gift for the person we're asking.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I say sometimes that everyone needs help until they know they don't. Mm-hmm. And you have to kind of know that you don't anymore. And that's we'll get there eventually, but I need help. I need help along the way, and I ask for it.
Yeah, and that's great. Yeah. So I think you had mentioned that you wanted to offer an exercise to close out this particular discussion, and before we finish up today's episode.
We've talked through the exercise. These 4 steps is the exercise, and it's a brilliant exercise. Do it, and with this essence of asking for help, and be okay with asking for help. Yeah. Get beyond the stuck ego, as you said, and go ahead and ask for help. And you don't have to ask a person. You ask the universe, and then watch for the answers, because you'll get them. They'll come. You'll hear about a book or a movie, or something will happen, or somebody will offer you something, and your answers will come that way. It's a fun process. So conscious self-creation, David, awesome topic for today, and thanks for leading us through your that 4-step process. I think that's brilliant.
Thank you.
I think we're kind of wrapping this one up a little bit, and what I want to do is talk about next week. Next week we have an amazing guest joining us. Her name is Kristen Richardson, and Kristen is a psychiatric nurse. She has her own practice. She's had her own practice for almost 20 years now, and she has amazing results, and been having amazing results, and is actually starting to get recognized for this, and starting to think about training other people in the psychiatric community, other practitioners, because what Kristen observes is that a lot of people in the industry tend to get burned out. Well, Kristen doesn't. Kristen gets up every morning, and she's enthusiastic about helping people, because she knows she's helping them at the core level. So she has a totally different way of approaching therapy and psychiatry and psychology, and it's just going to be amazing to talk to her about that. She calls it spiritual psychology, a term she got from one of her teachers, and I'm really looking forward to having her on the call next week. So do join us and hear what Kristen has to share.
Yeah, Kristen also is a good friend of Gary Zukav, by the way, who is a writer in the whole environment of spiritual psychology. And some people will have heard of him, I'm sure. So
maybe
we'll have him on the show one day.
Let's put that out there. There's an ask.
Yeah, all right, dude. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And Tommy, it's just been a blast being with you again, as always. So that's it. Goodbye, everyone.
Till next time.